Hi, I'm Rebecca Barnes with Prince William Living Magazine, and we are here today to talk about heart health and why it's important. I want to welcome our guest, Joseph St. Pierre II. He's the DO. He is with Novant Health, UVA Health Systems, Virginia, and he practices internal medicine with an interest in diabetes and bariatric medicine. Dr. St. Pierre, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Um, we've got a lot of information to go over, and we want to tell our readers why things are so important. Heart disease, what is the biggest risks for folks with heart disease?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me here today. The biggest risk factors: smoking, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity. That being said, there was this multi-generational study back in 1948 called the Framingham study. It is this study that has kind of generated all our knowledge, everything that we know about heart disease, risk factors, and the modifying factors associated with it.
Okay, so some of the factors that are involved in that, one of them is blood pressure, correct?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about how you can monitor your blood pressure, why you should do it, what does it mean when you get those numbers from your doctor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is kind of like this nebulous thing. We all know about blood pressure, but we don't necessarily know, what it means as a patient, right? So let me start with what is considered normal. Okay. To know what normal is, the top number is below 120 and the bottom number is 80. Further, what do these numbers actually mean? All right. So with any type of pressure with the heart's a pump. All right. So when you think about of a pump, there's got to be some type of pressure or force, right? So when the heart contracts, that generates a force. All right. That force inside your blood vessels as the blood is flowing, that's the top number. That's that 120 number. That's the force when the heart actually pumps. Now, the bottom number, that's when your heart is at rest in between beats, right? That's what the pressure is when everything's at rest. So to kind of get an understanding of what the heart has to do, basically to be able to move blood, it's got to be able to pump higher pressure wise than that bottom number. Because if it doesn't, then the blood won't go anywhere. Okay. And everything that we go to know today about blood pressure and all these pressure numbers and, with regards to cholesterol and blood pressure and obesity and smoking, all kind of modify these numbers in some fashion to make the pressure in some way worse. All right. Um,
So if you quit smoking and you exercise, what else can you do to treat high blood pressure?
yeah, excellent question, right? So, diet's one. All right. And diet in what way? All right. So there's always reduction of cholesterol because cholesterol can, basically clog up the arteries, which are basically your pipes, right? And so when it clogs up the arteries, basically it increases pressure. So you can kind of get an idea when flow is going through there, it's going to be higher, right? So eating a healthy, heart healthy diet, lower in saturated fats, generally roughly around 20 grams saturated fat is kind of the magic number you want to look for. With regards to smoking kind of potentially very similar. It's a lot of carbon dioxide you're taking in as opposed to oxygen. So your body needs that oxygen. So the oxygen is competing with that extra carbon dioxide, so it's got to get that oxygen. So your pressure goes up to make up for it because it's about speed. And same thing with heart rate too in that regard. Other things like salt, right? We love salt. We love going out to eat. It tastes good, makes everything taste better. I agree. But basically, how it kind of works is that salt likes water. So when you consume salt, where salt goes, water goes. So if you have more salt in your arteries, you'll have more water, you'll have more fluid, and then that increases the pressure in your blood vessels, which basically goes back and increases pressure on the heart. So generally, when we talk about lower salt diets, something called DASH diet, you want to kind of keep your sodium intake to under 2,000 milligrams a day, basically 2 grams a day, which can be tough too. If we eat out a lot, everything that you like has a lot of salt in it. But, everything in moderation does, make a big difference.
Okay, so or earlier we talked about cholesterol. Can you explain, because we hear about good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, what is cholesterol? Where does it come from? How do we lower it in our diet down to that number you were talking about?
Yeah. So what is cholesterol really? It's a It's a waxy fatty type substance that's needed in almost every aspect of your body. It has a whole bunch of features between structural and hormonal, testosterone, estrogen, vitamin D, or I'm sorry, cholesterol is an underlying backbone of these things. All right. So it's been kind of, frowned upon, or it's been like negatively talked about, how we're always like, oh, cholesterol's a bad guy. Well, excess cholesterol is probably the bad guy. Okay. Your body actually makes it from the liver. All right. All the cholesterol that your body actually needs, it is able to produce. Um, so you have these terms like good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, right? So good cholesterol is considered your high density lipoprotein, or when you see it, it's called HDL. Really, what it does is it's the cleanup crew. All right. If you have excess cholesterol in your bloodstream, the HDL will go and get it, and it'll clean it out, and it'll bring it back to the liver to process it. All right. So the bad cholesterol, basically any type of excess cholesterol that's not HDL is considered, can be bad, but traditionally we kind of link it to what's called LDL, the low density lipoprotein. And that really is your cholesterol, fat transport protein in the body. And since cholesterol and fats are needed in every cell in the entire body, it's constantly moving this throughout the bloodstream. So then ultimately what ends up happening is this bad cholesterol can get stuck on the cell wall because of damage. Like I talked about high blood pressure, you get wear and tear over time, it can damage the cell wall. And then that cholesterol can get stuck in there and it causes clogging up basically. And that's like your atherosclerosis, like when you use these fancy terms like that.
So besides reduction in your diet of how much you're taking in, what other ways do you have to treat cholesterol?
Yeah, so obviously medications. The two common ones that you'll see probably with your primary care doctor are your statins. There's your atorvastatin, your Lipitor, your rosuvastatin, your Crestor, your simvastatin. There's a whole slew of them. They're varied by their potency. Atorvastatin and Crestor and rosuvastatin are the higher potency type statins. So they have the opportunity to be able to lower your cholesterol at much greater values than some of the other ones. All right. There's another medication that it's called Zetia. All right, that's the brand name. It blocks basically the absorption of cholesterol in the gut. Generally, you kind of go to that medication either when you can't lower somebody's cholesterol appropriately enough through statins, or if they can't tolerate it. There are other fancier medications, newer medications that you can get from your cardiologist or injectable medications. They work very, very well. But again, these are more advanced, newer medications that you'd have to discuss with your cardiologist.
Okay. So another factor for heart health, and I know my mother suffered from diabetes for years. Tell us a little bit about what diabetes does to the heart, and what your recommendations are for that.
Yeah, so diabetes, when you think about it, so when you have high cholesterol, it's excess cholesterol. When you have diabetes, it's excess sugar. The mechanism is different by how that actually, causes that. But basically, you have this excess sugar in the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. And just like, having high blood pressure, if high blood pressure could damage cell walls, things of that nature, cholesterol can get stuck. The glucose, your sugar, can also exacerbate that also. And it can cause some similar issues, like it can help cause this atherosclerotic disease in the vessels. So oftentimes, when somebody is diabetic, you'll want to put them on a medication like a statin because you don't want to take the chance or risk them, having that excess sugar also with the excess cholesterol. You want to be able to try and minimize some of that damage. There's other medications too that can help, like aspirin, like a baby aspirin, 81 milligrams. That's kind of been all over the place too in that regard. There's risk for stomach ulcers and things like that. Not a very large risk with taking a baby aspirin, especially if you take it with food. That can kind of help make things less sticky. So less chance that things like platelets can get stuck and cause these clots and things like that. Other medication for blood pressure. So blood pressure control is important, obviously, with diabetics, along with heart disease. You have medications like lisinopril or losartan. These are classic blood pressure medications that are a lot of people on. All right, they protect the heart, but they also in diabetics protect the kidneys. All right. So that's also another thing that could potentially happen because a lot of these things, when you try and modify them or work on them, are all interrelated.
Absolutely. So if we're, you know, maybe cutting down a little bit on the fast food, we're pulling back a little bit on the salt, we're um, checking those numbers on our bad cholesterol intake, possibly working in some medications. What other things can our readers do just in their day-to-day life to help with their heart health so that it lasts them their lifetime?
Yeah. So take care of yourself. Um, all those things are appropriate. Diet, exercise. And when we talk about exercise, there's a lot of different recommendations out there, but it's usually at least some type of moderate intensity exercise, 60 minutes a day, multiple times per week, probably like 5 times a week. And when I say moderate intensity, what is that? I mean, it's basically a brisk walk, anything that kind of gets the heart going, great somewhere in the range of 50 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. People like numbers. Um, you want to know what these numbers are? Maximum heart rate is 220. Subtract your age from that. That should be, in theory, your maximum heart rate. So then you could take basically 50% of that number. Um, if you're achieving over 50% of your heart rate, and then you're working at a moderate intense rate. And Fitbit devices, Apple Watches. I wear an Apple Watch. I'm constantly looking at my heart rate numbers and things like that. Are very helpful to be able to give you an understanding.
So people talk about steps, they talk about time. Is there one way or another that's better, one over the other, or you just find that what's the happy medium for you? I mean,
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Find the happy medium. I don't remember what the research was off the top of my head. There was a study a long time ago that tried to link something like 10,000 steps as like a threshold to being heart healthy, and it likely is. But I think some of the information, I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head, that number might be a little bit lower. It might be something like around 8,000 steps a day or something that actually has proven to show to make some type of difference by.
I never make my steps, but I submit that I'm short and it takes me a lot longer and a lot more effort to go the same distance as most people. So I kind of figure it's a wash. But so we need to be, watching our diets, trying to do some regular, even moderate exercise to extend our lifespan and our heart span. Um, is there anything else you want to pass along to our readers? We'll be sure to put all the information below the video that links back to information, but is there anything specific that you want to drive home?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would add to that was it's very interesting to Google something called blue zones. And these are the 5 places in the world where people actually live longer, healthier lives. They have good quality of life. And there are some overlapping cultural things that are maybe helpful to people if they want to get an understanding of how, if they want to not just live a longer life, but a healthier life. And, some of the common things are like plant-based diets, having good social structure, family, friends, these types of things. Obviously minimizing or, obviously no smoking, and some alcohol intake is okay as long as it's done in, a limited to moderate amount. But I would definitely, if people are interested in, healthy lifestyles, I would definitely take a look at that. That can provide a tremendous amount of information. There is actually a place in the United States on the list out in Loma Linda, California. And I think that's, from what I remember, that's where a lot of Seventh-day Adventists live. And they're very, big vegan diet. Again, that's kind of reiterates some of the things that you see throughout the world. There's a heavier plant-based type diet. Not necessarily 100% vegan, but plant-based diet seems to be something that really does begin to make a difference.
So we should check out blue zones and maybe in theory try to adapt or adopt some of the things that
Yeah,
they're doing in our own lives so that we can reduce the stress on our heart.
yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today. We want to thank Novant Health UVA Health Systems for taking the time to give us this information. We'll be sure to put links below with stats, more information that you can read, and of course, contact information if people want to make appointments or have questions, read a FAQ, and get more information on how they can improve their heart health. So again, thank you for joining us, and thanks everybody for watching the video. Read the links below, and we will see you soon. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.